rebuild, reconstruct our lawful government. And a huge part of this are peacekeeping. And the militia, the sheriffs, the continental marshals, the peacekeeping task force, and et cetera. So what are your expectations with regard to, as we pull together these states of states and start putting more structure into our assemblies, how do you see those forces working together?
Well, our peacekeeping forces are actually the highest level of law enforcement. You know, that's not, peacekeeping is not the same as law enforcement, okay?
Right, right.
But I'm saying this so that people get it in their brains that, oh, our county sheriffs actually do overstand everybody else within our county? Yes, they do. And so I see a great future for our peacekeepers, the constitutional sheriffs and the state assembly militias. I see them as being absolutely vital. I see the county sheriff as upholding the constitutions and the public law within each county. I see the state militias upholding the public safety within each state. We've discussed the way that the Swiss cantons were organized at about the same time that ours were supposed to be organized, so that every community has its own safety net. Everybody has something that they can do toward the public safety, and they do it. Every Swiss citizen above the age of, I think it's 14, owns a gun, knows how to shoot a gun, knows how to clean a gun, knows how to load a gun, knows what kind of ammo goes in that gun, has a supply ready to go. Imagine what would happen to this country if we were organized like that.
Yeah.
Number one, there'd be a lot less crime. Number two, there'd be a lot less fear of guns. Number three, if something did happen where we needed to actually arm up, we could quickly, easily, like the Minutemen. And the more important thing to me day to day is that we'd also have an infrastructure ready to go to answer all the different natural disasters that can come upon a state or a region or a community.
Right.
Back in 1996, a wildfire swept through our part of Alaska, and it all but destroyed our small community.
Yeah.
Over 400 houses were burned, you know, and including my house, by the way.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. It was the Miller's Reach 2 fire. And, you know, you would think that with something that gigantic, 37,000 acres, 400 homes, this little town all but destroyed, right? You would think that somebody would show up and do something practical to deliver help and aid and organize repair efforts and all of that. But no, that is not what happened.
Wow.
The only presence of the government that you saw were the police and the firemen. And the police were basically getting in the way, trying to obstruct traffic and control people. And the firemen were fighting to save things like schools, libraries, public buildings, post offices, you know. They weren't worried about your home. They were worried about taking care of the public facilities, all right? And there were no provisions. I mean, you would think that something like a mobile army unit would come in, set up tents, latrines, soup kitchens, get people off the streets and back on track and da-da-da-da-da. Nothing like that happened.
Oh my gosh.
People were just left to go find, you know, places with friends and relatives. They were left to pay for all their own bills. They were left to rebuild in the middle of all of this. And incidentally, one of the worst parts of it was cleaning up the debris. Because when you have a disaster like that, before you can even start to think about rebuilding, you have this absolutely awe-inspiring, mammoth cleanup effort that has to be done.
Right.
You know, I don't know how many hundreds of burned out cars we had to remove.
Huh.
I don't even want to think about how many acres we had to clear of burned trees.
Yeah.
I don't want to think about all the homes that were destroyed,
Right.
down to the foundations. I mean, they told me that my house burned at excess of 2,300 degrees.
Was that a directed energy weapon fire?
No.
Oh.
It was just an exceptionally hot year. And the wind blew like crazy. And so we had a very hot, dry year with high winds. And it came through like a firestorm. And so, like, when I went back and started picking through the debris of my home, I found shards of plates that had exploded, and the glazing on them had melted all together. So the designs, you know, you could recognize them from the colors, but you couldn't tell what the design was.
That's bizarre.
And like the couch had stainless steel springs, right? And the couch cushions and everything, the wood and everything completely burned away. And what was left were these, the outlines of the springs, and you could touch them and they would just disintegrate into dust.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so it was a complete destruction of our home, but there was still an awful lot of debris in the surrounding area and neighborhoods. And everybody worked like dogs for weeks with no help from the government. It was just, you know, people bringing in their Caterpillars and their front end loaders from other parts of the valley and, you know, scooping it up and hauling it away.
But if we had our well-regulated militia in place,
If
they
we had,
would have
well,
been.
right. You would see that kind of thing where they come in and they set up tents and they set up soup kitchens and they set up latrines and they set up relief stations and they set up first aid, and you know, nobody goes hungry, nobody goes dirty, nobody has to worry about the rain falling on their head. That's the kind of response that you expect in a society that is thinking in terms of practical survival on the planet and taking care of the people.
Right.
But
Exactly.
absolutely nothing like that happened. Nothing like that happened.
Wow.
Eventually, a bunch of the do-gooder organizations showed up. And among those, the most effective were church organizations sponsored by the Mennonites and the Salvation Army. They came in and they did real things. I mean, they kept their little noses to the grindstone. They helped clear debris. They helped rebuild homes. They contributed tools like, you know, shovels and chainsaws and fuel coupons so that you could keep your car going or your chainsaw going, whatever. Yeah, they really did a lot. But a lot of other organizations that you would expect to respond didn't. And I remember the names of those organizations too. But anyway, people who think that the government is going to save them in the event of an emergency don't know what kind of a government they've got and what they're dealing with.
Yeah.
And they really do need to think in terms of creating the government that our forefathers intended for us, which is one in which we self-govern and self-protect and plan for our communities to take care of our people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I keep thumping on this idea that, oh my goodness, who knew that the government's primary job is to protect the people and their property?
Right.
That's what the government is supposed to be doing 100% of the time. And if your government is instead protecting itself and its investments and saying to hell with your home, then there's something really wrong here, folks. And that is exactly what I experienced and what thousands of other people who have gone through natural disasters in this country have experienced. So, you know, take it to heart. Your government, or what you think of as your government, is not your government, and it is not taking care of you. So you need to take care of your own government and your own self. You need to self-govern. And one of the things that our state assemblies can do is they look through to the future. They have their state assembly militias. Those militias can be used as the backbone of a community organization that does the kind of thing, you know, use the Swiss cantons as a model.
Right.
You know, where everybody gets trained, where everybody has a duty station and things to do in the case of a fire or a flood or a armed invasion by who knows what. Antifa, BLM.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if we were all properly prepared, do you think that such a thing would even get it wouldn't even get its nose in the door?
Nope, it sure would not.
So going forward, my recommendation to the state assemblies is to look at the kind of local and state government that our forefathers proposed. Look at the Swiss canton system as an example, a living example of what we were supposed to have, and build it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. And the sheriffs, the continental marshals, all add their particular focus so that when the whole system comes together, that we have our state covered, we have our counties covered, we have our international crimes covered. And
right. It's a shield. It's an integument that is there to protect the people and their property. So if you think about it as an Oreo cookie, and you're Joe Average and you're living in your little Monroe County, Wisconsin, all right? So you've got your Oreo here. You got your 3 layers. From the county level, the sheriff is the top layer. He's the big cheese up on top. Then you got your state militia. And then you have your continental marshals. You know, you've got this 3 layers of protection between you and the bad guys. And you're part of that protection. It's not external to you. You know those people, you know how this is supposed to work, and you're doing your part to make it work. So that's the difference between self-governance and, you know, hiring Joe down the road who happens to be an Italian here working on a visa.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely. Well, that sounds wonderful, Anna. Lots of good information shared here tonight. I really hope it helps people understand what it is that we're building, what it is that we're reconstructing, how we're reconstructing it, and so that they can see themselves as part of that.
Right, it's a process. You know, people have been running around going, oh no, the government's bankrupt. Oh, things are falling apart. Well, hello. It's not an emergency. It's a process. And it's something we have to do for ourselves.